Welcome back to Rare Connection, the podcast, the show where we dive into the lived experiences behind diagnoses, the stories that don't always make medical textbooks, but absolutely deserve space today. We are stepping a little outside the rare disease world, but right into the heart of something that's still profoundly misunderstood: dyscalculia, a learning disability that affects how the brain processes numbers, time, directions, and sequences. And honestly, if it's invisible, um, it's often misjudged, and people who live with it hear the word can't way too often. But my guest today, Michelle, has turned every I can't into I can, to watch me. Michelle is a writer, a photographer, a paraeducator, and a fierce advocate for people with invisible disabilities. She has had her work published on the mighty Dyscalculia Blog, nonverbal learning project, word gathering Calopina collective, and more. She works in education, supporting students with disabilities, and she lives in Pennsylvania with her husband and her two cats. Michelle, I'm so excited you're here today. Let's start with at the beginning. Now, when did you first realize something was different about the way you processed math or numbers?
It was really evident whenever I was in kindergarten that I was really struggling in the classroom. I had difficulty in my preschool classroom, but my teachers thought, okay, well, maybe another year. And my mom and dad said, oh, we think it's going to be okay. So they put me into kindergarten, and things didn't turn out wonderful. It was really difficult for me to be able to count, things like tying my shoes, writing my name. And my teacher thankfully knew something was going on, so she suggested that I get tested for having a learning disability. And sure enough, I have one. And at that age, they didn't call it dyscalculia. They just gave it the blanket term of learning disability. But they knew I was not going to be a mathematician by the time I was 5 or 6 years old. The professionals knew that.
Mhm. What did dyscalculia look like for you as a child?
For me as a child in the classroom, I had to go to specialty instruction. I had to repeat kindergarten and the following year. I really struggled with math. Math was the big thing. I could not read the face. I'm still not able to read the face of a clock, of an analog clock. I had difficulty with how numbers would work. I can remember I would get a worksheet where I would have to do the numbers, or I would have to be able to complete uh, the problems, and I would always get them wrong, and my brain just got lost in the steps and how we do numbers and math problems. Like I do not know all my times tables, do not know all my addition, subtraction, my fast facts. Anytime that I encountered numbers, I really struggle. And there was even things that now make a lot more sense. For example, I would always confuse my right from my left. My mom would we'd be shopping for shoes, and I wouldn't know I couldn't tell which shoe was my right foot, what foot was my right or my left. And everyone just said, well, can't you be able to tell? And I'm like, no, I really can't be able to do that. But it also spilled into other areas too. I was able to be in regular ed science and social studies eventually, but if you gave me a map, longitude and latitude, that was hard. Reading a map, understanding that was a challenge. Science class was difficult for me as well. Anytime we encountered math, that was really hard. So, as a young child, it presented a lot of issues within school for me.
So how did you, I mean, how do you deal with time when you can't read a clock?
One of the things I do, I love technology that's come out. I have a Fitbit, so not only do I count my steps on my Fitbit, the digital display, but I'm able to know what time it is. I can look at my phone to know what time it is. Also, I have a lot of digital displays in the house. So when we got a stove, I had to really make sure that it had a digital display on it, not an old-fashioned one. And that really has helped me out as well.
Mhm. Were teachers supportive, or did you run into a lot of you're not trying hard enough?
I was really lucky that I had a mixture. I had a lot of great teachers, and I had some teachers who didn't quite understand that as well. I can remember when I was very young, I had a wonderful learning support teacher, and I had the privilege of running into her a few years ago. And I got the chance to thank her, and she said, "Well, it was also your mom. Uh, Anytime she had a concern, the teacher would call my mom, and my mom would call the teacher anytime she had a concern, and they worked together." And my mom said that was one of her favorite teachers. I also had some teachers that didn't quite understand that. I had one whenever I was in eighth grade in learning support that really wanted her students to be on grade level. She had a lot of pressure from other colleagues that we were just doing easy work. And it worked up until a certain point, but I got lost on how to do an equation. I can still remember that day we had a student teacher that was getting evaluated and came into the classroom by with her professor, and everybody thought the reason I couldn't do the equation is I thought they were looking at me and I was nervous, and that wasn't the truth. My brain just simply, they were witnessing a brain that just was needing that step backwards to explain how to get to that point. But everyone just thought I was nervous, and nobody ever explained how to get back to that point. And the teacher said, when you go up to the high school, there is no specialized instruction for math. It's all regular ed classes. And she had me sign up for that. And I can just remember that whole summer I was really nervous, and I school came around my first year in high school, and I went into the class and I tried, but I couldn't even get it at a basic level. The teacher didn't know what to do with me. She was a nice lady, but she didn't really know what to do. So I was in a resource room, and the teacher said, "Why don't we get you into a learning support math?" And it turns out they did have a learning support math class.
Mhm.
And I, the teacher that was there was not always very understanding. She didn't really care for me. So it was a long 3 years that I had to take math, but I was able to get through the math class. And that's the credit that I needed up until my senior year. I didn't have to take math anymore. But she also, the big question came too, well, what am I supposed to do after I'm done with high school? I knew I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to be able to uh, work with kids and get my degree. And she didn't think I could handle it, the learning support teacher, because of my math, and really pushed me to go to a trade school where nothing there even interested me. So, but I was still determined to do it anyways. And I also had some great teachers though as well. I had a teacher that when I was in high school could see in my history class that I was good at reading. So he would get me up in front of the classroom to read and present things, and was just always there to encourage me. A lot of my English teachers in regular ed saw that I could write really well, and they encouraged me as well.
Mhm. So you mentioned your education. So
Mhm.
how did your so what age group are you working with?
I am working with seventh graders this year.
So does it change?
Well, it depends on the year. I like our department. I like working with children at this age, but I could get anywhere from an elementary school to up to the senior high. We just never know year by year where we'll be at. But all the kids know, do not ask me for help with math because I cannot do it, and I'm okay with admitting that.
Yeah. So, so how do you help? What do you do as a paraeducator?
A lot of it is helping the teacher and the students in the classroom. Sometimes it might be working with a student, reinforcing a concept they just can't get. Other times it might be reading a test aloud to a student. Sometimes it can just be helping a student today. I helped a student with organizing their papers today. Sometimes it can be cleaning out the backpack. Other times, though, I try to look for other ways that I can do things. Like I'm able to show them how to advocate for themselves. A lot of times, I'll have a student that might be afraid to ask for help and they really need it. And I'll go with them and I'll tell them, I said, okay, it's all right. We'll work on this, but you need to use your voice. You need to speak up and ask for help. But I'm afraid. And I said, it's going to be okay. And I show them how to advocate. And before you know it, they're not afraid to ask for help. And I think that's so important because for so many of my students, they're going to one day leave me, but for a lot of them, their disabilities are going to be there. So I want them to know how to advocate for themselves.
Hmm. So, how did your family respond?
My parents were very understanding. They never gave up on me. I think in the beginning it was a little hard for them to understand, especially since my dad's pretty good at math. And they never heard about learning disabilities. And I was my parents' first child. So this was a new concept for them. But they didn't give up. We spent a lot of long homework and sometimes tearful homework sessions together, and they had me do the best I could do. But they made me go to school, even if I was having trouble with a peer, if I wasn't doing well in a class, or they knew I wasn't going to pass a test. They still made me go to school, and that helped me to build up a lot of resilience. And they advocated for me whenever I was in school, we did not go to our IEP meetings. My mom and dad went for me. They would say, well, you have an IEP meeting coming up. Is there anything you want us to talk about? And I would tell them and they would report back to me. So, I mean, they were definitely a huge part of how I was able to be successful in my life.
Hmm. So, do you have any siblings now?
Yes, I have one brother. He is 13 years younger than I am.
Hmm. And does he have dyscalculia also?
No,
Or
he doesn't. In fact, that was one of the things I think my mom and dad were concerned about and were on the lookout for because after I went to school, they were wondering, oh, is he going to have that? And he has I have two nieces. He has two beautiful little girls that I love being an aunt to.
Mhm.
And that was one of the concerns they had whenever they were starting school was, well, do they have a learning disability themselves? And so far, they don't appear that they have them.
Do you ever feel like you're being judged for something that no one can see?
Sometimes I do feel like I am being judged, especially because people can't see my disability. So I either get, for people who don't know me, sometimes if I tell them I have a disability, they'll be like, well, you don't look disabled. And they're looking for the cane or the wheelchair. And I have to explain to them that sometimes people have disabilities that we can see and some that we can't see. And other times I'll have people that'll think, well, why can't you understand math? Why can't you drive? Why can't you do all these things? And excuse me, then I just have to go and explain to them that I have a disability and that is one of the things that does present that. And if I don't tell people that, sometimes people think that I might be lazy or I might be unmotivated or careless, and they don't understand because, once again, they can't see the disability per se. I also get it from people who do know me. They think because they can't see it or I've had success in my life, they think that I must be cured or I've overcome having a disability. And I have to explain to them that yes, I've had success. I've been able to get my bachelor's degree. I've been able to publish, but it still means that I still have a disability and it does impact my life.
Hmm. So something powerful in your story is how many uh, people told you that you can't do college, a bachelor's degree, publishing, getting the job you wanted. Um, can you talk about what it's like, what it was like, and what motivated you to keep going anyway?
I think one of the big things that was my motivation was when I was in high school and everyone was telling me I couldn't do it. I had a student teacher that said, "You can go to college because you know how to study." And I just kept that in my head. Even when the psychiatrist told me that based on my scores, I wouldn't be able to go past community college, I would hear that voice in my head when I struggled at community college and then later at university. And that just gave me that hope and that encouragement to keep on going forward that I could do it. And I don't remember what that woman's name was, but I wish I did because I would love to be able to thank her.
Mm-hmm. So was there a specific moment where you said, I'm doing this no matter what?
I think it was going in afraid. I think at community college, that was definitely one of those things. I didn't know if I was going to pass. I knew there was a huge stigma surrounding them, but I went in and I was able to get my associate's degree in early childhood education. And I had wonderful friends too that really helped support and encourage me. And I can remember I moved out on my own after community college and I had some temp jobs but I always wanted more for myself and I had to move back in with my parents for financial reasons. And this was the time when my job was downsizing and I thought I'm just going to give it a try. And I really carefully researched a program that had the least amount of math and science possible and had disability accommodations. And I also had that maturity. I knew that it wasn't the end of the world if I didn't do well in a class. It wasn't the end of the world if I failed a test. And I understood that. I could still be successful if it wasn't perfect. And this time I used all the accommodations. I had a note taker, I had extra test time, and I also had tutoring when I needed it. And most importantly, I advocated for myself. Had that confidence to go up to a new professor and say, "Hi, my name is Michelle. I have a learning disability. These are the supports I'm going to need." And it worked out beautifully. I was able to make a dean's list for one semester, and my grades improved, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree despite being told I couldn't do it.
So with most degrees, you're required to do math. Is there,
Yes.
were you able to get around that?
Yes, there were some ways to be able to do that. I, whenever I first started out at community college, I had to take a prep class for math. And I could not pass the prep class, no matter how hard we tried. I went and I had a tutor. I went and I had accommodations, and I still could not pass it. And the professor knew that I was trying. So we put that on the shelf for a while. But then when we got towards the end and it was almost time to graduate, what we did was I got a waiver. We submitted that request to the dean to get a math waiver and a class substitution. With my everything that was the documentation that I had a disability with that and all the effort that I put in that was trying. And the dean granted that, so I took film analysis as a substitution for my math. When I went to university, they did not let me get a waiver. That was pretty clear from the beginning. I wasn't going to get one. But they had a philosophy-based math course, or I could take another algebra class. And I was on the fence about, well, what am I going to do? What class should I take? And I was sitting at university and there was a chess game. And somebody asked me, "Do you want to play?" And I played against this guy, and uh, of course, he won, and it was the shortest chess game in history. And I told him, I said, "I'm debating on whether to take this philosophy-based math course or one from the math department." He said, "I take the philosophy-based math one. A lot of the guys in my department are very nice." So I knew that I was going to have to do that. And I took an intro to logics class, and the class was very difficult. Once again, I failed every single test. I went to tutoring, I went to office hours, I had every accommodation that I could get, and I still wasn't passing. And I talked with the professor, and all I needed was a D. And he gave me a D, and that's all I needed. And everything, all my other classes were A's, so I was able to graduate. And that was a lot of the research too. I knew that if I went to become a certified teacher, that that wouldn't be a wise option for me because I couldn't pass the tests and some of the courses. So I think it was that careful research, but I was also putting in the hard work and the effort with that.
You not only went to you not only went to college, graduated with a degree in community programming and for Americans with disabilities, and now you work as a paraeducator supporting students with
Mhm.
disabilities. What drew you to that path?
I think after I graduated from university, that is when I thought I want to be able to help other people. I had that confidence. And I know my parents were encouraging me to work with students too that had disabilities. My dad said that it's a dark world for people that have disabilities and that they need to have that light. So he really encouraged a lot of that. And I think I also had an adult writing group that I was with, and we talked a lot about. Uh, they said you should really share about having a learning disability, and for a long time I thought, oh no, I'm too shy, and I don't want to talk about that. And I was diagnosed with limited hand dexterity as an adult. And we moved into our house and I could not unlock our front door. And I was so frustrated. And there was a call in the mighty for what's a seemingly easy task for others, but it's hard with your disability. And I thought, I'm going to write about this. And I had such a great response that I started to write other articles for the Mighty and for other places as well, and to start my own blog, Michelle's Mission. And I also, around before that time too, after college, I got employed with the Butler with my with the school that I work at.
So, how does your lived experience shape the way that you work with students?
I think it helped me become a more empathetic person because I think I would have always been drawn to working with people that had disabilities, but I don't know if I could understand how they feel. A lot of times when I work with my seventh graders, it's like hearing a recording of myself at that age. I hate my disability. I really wish I didn't have it. And I get to be that voice that tells them it's okay to have a disability and that you are smart. And I just think that that has created empathy in me.
Mm-hmm. Uh, do you see yourself in any of the kids you help?
I can see certain traits of having a like with a disability, definitely. I do work with students that have learning disabilities. Some are specific. Some do have, they struggle with math too, and others struggle with reading. I also can just see different things um, in a lot of my students, just with how they might feel about being in a learning support classroom or being in a resource room. They feel like everyone's looking at them. So I can really feel that emotional side as well.
For listeners who may not know much about dyscalculia, can you describe how it shows up in your day-to-day life?
Sure. One of the ways that it shows up is I am not, budgeting's really hard for me, knowing how much money we have, with how much we have to pay with our bills and how much money is left. That can be difficult. Reading the face of a clock, as I said, can be really hard for me. It can be difficult. Just with banking can be hard. Leaving a tip when I'm at a restaurant can be difficult. If I'm at the store, it's hard for me to know how much my total is going to be. It's always a surprise at the register, and it's easier for me to use cash than it is to use a credit card or a debit card because that's more abstract. Where cash is more like I can visualize that. So those are some of them. Driving is a big thing, but that's also with the vision perception too. It all comes down to the one disability too, that eye-hand coordination, the reaction time that can also be impacted. The not knowing the right from my left can be hard too.
I thought you said you didn't drive.
Oh, I don't drive, no, but it's just no. So I mean that the not being able to drive though does impact that. So I live in a central location and my husband's able to take me there, but I had to kind of plan my life around things as well.
So do you have somebody else who handles the bills?
My husband generally does that. We'll talk about that. We'll communicate that as well.
Hmm. So you've talked about dyscalculia in uh, how dyscalculia is invisible. You can't see it like a cane or a walker. Um,
Yes.
what are the biggest misconceptions people have?
One of the biggest misconceptions is, first of all, they think that it's like dyslexia, where I just see numbers backwards instead of letters, and I don't see numbers backwards. Another one is that it must be a rare disability, and it's not. Learning disabilities are quite common. It's estimated that 1 in 5 people have a learning disability of some sorts. Another one is that I must be able, well, there's either two sides to this. There's the one side that people will think, well, if you just tried hard enough, you could overcome that, or somebody can teach you. And it's not that I can't get better in a certain aspect, or it's not that I can't do that. It's just that it's very hard for me to do that, and I may not get the progress that somebody else wants. Other people might think that I can't do anything. They think I can't learn how to do anything in life. And that's not true too. I just have to be able to find a way that works for me. And as long as it's not math, I should be fine with what is expected.
Hmm. Do people assume it's a motivation issue?
Some people do. Some people think if I really wanted to learn how to do math, I could, or it's all in my head because I think that I can't do it. And everybody told me from the time I was young I couldn't do it. And it's really not a motivational issue. You could offer me $1 million if I could complete a math problem or a math worksheet correctly. And as much as I would want that money, I'm simply not able to do it. And that's also not true if you look at me going into school, because if I wasn't motivated, the first time I had problems, I probably wouldn't be showing up for the class, or I wouldn't even, I might just think, oh, that's too hard for me. I'm not even going to try. But I was motivated. I might have been struggling, but I still showed up. I still did the work and I put forth my 100% effort.
Mhm. So yeah, I would assume this is probably really underdiagnosed.
Mhm.
Yeah. No.
It can be. Actually, the
Mm.
most underdiagnosed one is people who are Asian, because everybody has a stereotype that if you're Asian, you must be good at math. So therefore, dyscalculia can exist. So a lot of times, people who are Asian are the most underdiagnosed out of everybody. But a lot of times, people just are so used to seeing the narrative of dyslexia or reading disabilities that nobody knows anything else about that.
Mhm. Have you felt the need to prove yourself because people couldn't see your disability?
I think sometimes that can be, I used to always have to have that validation. Like it was okay that I didn't know how to do math. And then I kind of felt sorry for myself. And then eventually I just started to feel that it's okay if not everybody understands that I can't do it. As long as I know that I'm putting forth my best effort, then that's good enough for me.
What do you wish educators, employers, and even families understood?
I think one of the first things is that learning disabilities are a real thing, because a lot of times people think, oh, if you just work hard enough, or if you think positive or you work hard enough, that you won't have a disability. And the truth is, it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, you should put forth effort, but it's not going to cure the disability. So I think that's the first thing I wish people did, and that they're real. This isn't something that a kid's making up to get attention, or it's not something that somebody might be making up just to get out of doing something. I wish people understood that, and that this is a lifelong thing. A lot of times people think, well, they'll grow out of having a disability. And it's not something you grow out of. It's something that impacts a person even in adulthood. And I would also like to say it's also not a barrier for somebody to be successful. There are people that have learning disabilities that are successful. Some are famous people, and some might just be your everyday person. But people can be successful with the right amount of tools, and sometimes it's not even the disability that makes somebody not with a learning disability not be successful. Sometimes it might be society. Sometimes it can just be those expectations people put on them that everybody has to be the same or everybody has to be good at math. And sometimes that can really hurt the person even more.
What do you want the world to know about dyscalculia?
One of the things is just to kind of go in and have an understanding that a person with dyscalculia is just somebody that's not great with math, but they still have other things they can offer the world.
So, what can you find? Let's see, where can you find your work, your articles, and your photography?
You can find me at my blog, www.michellesmission.com.
Any upcoming projects you're excited about?
I have my fourth anthology that I'll be published in that should become that has just come out. That's called Tough Kids, and it talks about how my learning disability has made me strong. And I was also published in another anthology called Through Our Lens, and I was super excited about that as well. And I'm just excited to be able to just go and promote my blog and to just be able to help other people.
So, Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Your story is such a powerful reminder that invisible disabilities are real, valid, and deserve understanding, and that can't is not a life sentence.
Yes.
To everyone listening, if today's episode resonated with you, please subscribe to the Rare Connection podcast and my Rare Chef YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment below. If you're listening on audio, send me a text link in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. You can also follow Rare Connection on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And as always, if you're one other thing, there is a Rare Connection Facebook group, and brand new, I have a group that works with people with multiple. The Adaptive Kitchen is, I remember. X. Okay. If someone you know is struggling emotionally, please reach out for help. You are not alone. You can call or text 988, or you can text home to 741-741. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Rare Connection.